Hey and welcome back everyone to a brand new video here on the Identity Coach Tim's YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to tackle a very important topic. Something that you probably all already know, but we kind of tend to forget it as we're going about life. You have never existed before with that specific gene pool in your specific environment, and you have never made those specific experiences ever before in history. So why do you tend to live by somebody else's playbook? Why am I saying this? In my recent coaching sessions, something very important came up. Most, and if not all of my clients that I'm working with currently are in the personal development field. We are all very self-aware. We've read the books, we've done the courses, we've attended workshops, did breathwork seminars, maybe even went to some meditation retreats, and did like everything possible in the realm that the social media is proposing us to do to kind of find our center and find back to who we are. But if you're being honest with yourself, the information that you're receiving as facts, the hammering it down into your mind, like this is the success formula for you to get $1 million, or this is the exact formula that you should follow to become more zen, become more whole, and actually attract healthier partners. What we tend to forget is that their information, their facts, is merely what they've established through their own filters and through their own perception of what works for them. Generalization is a big problem in our nowadays society, because we tend to believe that there is one-fits-all success formulas. What we tend to forget is that this one-fits-all success formula doesn't necessarily translate over into your life. Because maybe you have not been raised in a certain way to understand that, love takes a certain amount of action and a certain amount of thinking and behaving towards our partner or towards ourselves. If we've never been taught that, then this success fits it all formula is just, something that is being thrown at us and say, do this and you will get X result. You do it. It doesn't work because your framework, your belief system, your core, who you are, your identity patterns have never experienced or learned this specific way of thinking, feeling, and doing and acting on life. So now all of a sudden this generalization of, okay, if I do this, then I should get that. I did it. I didn't get that, so it didn't work. I hear a lot that I've been doing breathwork seminars, but they just don't work for me. I've been doing meditation, but they just don't work for me. Okay, that's in and of itself, again, is generalization. The problem is that if you think about it, you want to bake a cake, right? We give you the recipe. We say you need 4 eggs, you need flour, you need some baking soda, you need a certain amount of water, and then you need to preheat the oven in a certain temperature and then let it run for that long. Imagine now that on your table right now, you only have 2 eggs, or you have no eggs at all. You have maybe the wrong type of flour that you should use, and all of a sudden you don't have water, you only have sparkling water, right? That's like the analogy like that you got to keep in mind. And now all of a sudden you want to use, or you're supposed to use that specific recipe to build a cake. Obviously your cake is going to look, taste different, and maybe it won't even be a cake at all, But the idea that I'm trying to bring forward is that we have to, radical self-leadership is the answer to taking back control over your life. Because you have to have a healthy amount of self-reflection to understand that my specific life, my specific environment, my specific way of perceiving life does maybe not translate over into that success formula that I was given. So what do we do here? We tend to fixate on the facts rather than translating them in our own words, through our own filter, and applying them where they fit in. For example, I have 3 really good key areas where this is important. Neuroscience nowadays says you got to sleep 8 hours for you to be in optimum health. Okay, what then if you have a family, you have kids, you have a husband, you have a busy working job, and maybe you're even self-employed, and once you get home from work in the evening at 6 p.m., you got to take care of the kids. It's 9. Then you maybe have a husband as well, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you want to spend some time with. And then you as well haven't eaten yet. You want to eat. You want to have some time by yourself. And by the time you get into bed, it's 11, 12 p.m. But you got to wake up at 6 o'clock, right? Now, all of a sudden, this generalization that 8 hours should be the good amount of sleep that we get doesn't translate and doesn't fit into your specific environment and your specific life. Now, we then tend to say in our mind, because this generalization was given to you as fact, neuroscience has said, studies have shown, influencers said, this is what you should do. Your lifestyle just doesn't work with that specific rule set. Now, all of a sudden, instead of working with what you have, you then say, well, as I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep, I can't really live in an optimum health. And the thoughts that we produce, our brain can't differentiate between our imagination and reality. So what does it do? It takes what you imagine, so the belief that, well, as I'm not able to have 8 hours of sleep sufficiently and nourishingly, I cannot be in an optimum health. And all of a sudden it leads down this spiral of, well, if I'm not able to sleep 8 hours, I'm anyways not in this optimum state. So F it, man. Let's just try to make the best out of it and, just enjoy our time and maybe watch a little bit. So as we can't fit into this box of perfect anyways, why does it matter if I sleep now 6 hours, 4 or 5, right? This generalization is really important because your specific body has its own clock. I've seen people who need 10 hours of sleep. If they get any less than 10 hours of sleep, they have a horrible day, a horrible week, and nothing works out in their life. On the counterpart, I've seen individuals that work incredibly well with 5 to 6 hours. So our biology adapts to our environment. And what is more important, or actually what is less important, is the amount of hours that you sleep, but rather the consistency that you have within that sleep, within that rhythm. Because we are all human, we're all beings that are living by consistency, by certain patterns that need to be repeating over and over and over again. If you're new to my channel, I've uploaded a bunch of videos in the past about how your brain works, the algorithm that your brain likes to follow, and the way that your brain constitutes whether an environment or a system or a pattern that you hold is actually healthy by determining if it's replicable and if it's repeatable. So something that we can predictable and repeatable. So something that can be predictable and repeatable is deemed as perceived safetiness, and it can be repeated. Same goes for all of your bodily functions. So sleep is an important thing. Some people work really, really well with 6 hours. Maybe you can't even get 6 hours because you have kids, you got to wake up in the morning, you got to bring them to work, whatever is happening, right? But what I'm trying to say, the point that I'm trying to make here is that you have to translate the information that you're receiving from the outside world through your own lens and through your own filter and translate them over into your life. What does work for you, and then work with what you have. Another great example would be morning routines. I can't tell you enough how many videos I've seen of the perfect morning routine you should have to be successful. You gotta wake up at 4 a.m., because you gotta be awake 2 hours already before the rest of the world wakes up. You gotta meditate for an hour, you gotta run at least a half marathon, then do a little, cold plunge and sauna, then kick that off with an hour of stretching. Probably afterwards, then you should do some holotropic breathing for 45 minutes. And then ideally by that time, you can then start working on your business. It's 5:30 at that time. And then you head to work and take care of your kids and do everything possible. Okay. Do that and see how your day will actually look like. Is your day even adapted to that type of morning routine? But again, if you don't follow this one success morning routine or evening routine that takes 4 hours before you even do anything, you won't succeed. As you're not able to do the routine, you're a failure. See, and this is the big problem that we have nowadays. We attach our meaning to other people's worlds and other people's routines, environments, habits, and we don't differentiate between their life and our life. The best solution, the best secret sauce that I try to convey over to my clients and the people that I work with and my friends and my girlfriend and everyone is that make your routine, make your habits fit your lifestyle. Because as long as it fits your lifestyle, your sleep schedule, your working schedule, your life in and of itself, this will be the right success formula for you. Again, if somebody tells me, I'm sick and tired of the patterns that I'm living, I'm constantly getting drunk, or I'm unhappy with where I'm at right now in life. And then I ask, okay, what have you tried already before to counter that? Well, I've done breath work. I've done meditations. I've went to some workshops to kind of like figure that out. I do cold plunge. And I say, that's good. That's great key factors, because it actually improves your mental state. But what else do you do in your life that maybe is in hindrance of the successful implication or applicants of those habits? Well, after after a rough night of going out with my boys, I get drunk, and then I try to wake up in the morning, and I try to do some breath work before work, but for some reason it doesn't work, and then I head to work, I have a shitty day, and the rest just turns out bad as well, and I just can't stop to repeat that. Well, maybe the breath work itself is not bad, but maybe your formula for your life has different parts that are maybe blocking that one good thing for you to be able to actually have an effect. So the real question then here becomes, what do you do in your life that is creating those negative experiences for you? Write them down. A lot of people are not aware of their problems. If you can't name the problem, you can never change it, right? Carl Jung said very famously, the moment we make the subconscious conscious, we stop becoming slaves of it. So here again, the same thing. If you have patterns running your life, become aware of them. The easiest way is you take a piece of paper and a pen, and you start writing down everything that you do. Everything. From the moment you wake up, take a normal day, take a normal weekend day as well, write down what you do, and then become aware of the pattern that is repeating over and over and over again. And by naming it, you're already putting it on a piece of paper, and you see it in front of you, and you say, well, yeah, maybe if I wouldn't, drink a bottle of wine in the evening with my partner, I would have a little bit more energy in the morning to actually do my routine. Or maybe if I wouldn't, shortly before going to bed, watch, fight videos that totally bring up my adrenaline, I would have a little bit better sleep cycle and sleep rhythm. What you got to keep in mind is that you have all of the answers that you need for a successful, healthy, well-founded, and fulfilling life within you already. We just tend to, by our upbringing, by our environment, by what we tend to do, what we tend to experience, and what we've experienced in the past, try to replicate this over and over and over again. Because the patterns that we repeat are the patterns that will be translated into your future. Whether they're good or bad is of no importance to your brain. It just wants what can be repeated and what is predictable. So blocking, stopping in your tracks and saying, well, maybe I take those little things out and I try to improve them with tiny little twists. I had a great coaching call this morning where we talked about, for some reason, I'm a morning person and I need energy in the morning, but I don't have energy. Even though I sleep 7 hours, I don't know, my sleep quality is not really good. So the rest of my day kind of turns out quite bad too. There I'm asking, what do you do in the evening? Well, I, get home quite late after he's an independent coach, as an independent coach. Well, I get home around 9 o'clock and then I cook myself a big meal, so a big pot of rice to kind of tackle that with. And then from there on, I then, go on to watch Netflix for the next 2 hours. And then usually that's already then 11:30. And then by the time I'm in bed, I try to fall asleep then within the next 15 minutes. Okay, great. That's a routine, right? But have you maybe considered that so short before bed, eating something heavy such as carbohydrates, which have a lot of sugar too, increases your insulin spike? Maybe your brain and your body needs more time to digest and actually calm down before it can actually rest and replenish its system and its organs. Maybe so short before going to bed watching Netflix that blue light is hemming the melatonin production in your brain. And maybe this is why when you're actually in bed, you're lying there and you're thinking, okay, you're kind of reviewing your entire day and obviously can't fall asleep then. So it's usually very simple patterns. So I then propose, okay, on one hand side, if you watch Netflix in the evening, no biggie. That's your thing. Kind of like calm down from like a A long day, maybe you need that, maybe you want that, that's perfectly fine. But get some of those. Get yourself some blue light blockers, right? So you have a natural melatonin production that is happening in the evening. Maybe instead of eating rice to kind of, because you're hungry, maybe switch them up with, I don't know, some yogurt, some soft, something that is very easily digestible. And all of a sudden, your sleep quality can improve. If you say, I don't find time to work out, that's why I'm kind of stuck within the weight that I'm having. And this kind of influences my mental thoughts, the way that I'm seeing myself, the way that I'm perceiving other people to perceive me. Okay, fair enough. If you don't have the actual 1.5 to 2 hours, or 1 hour to 2 hour per day in your week to work out, how does your day look like? Is there maybe something that we can implement into your specific lifestyle, into your specific, system that can help you improve and optimize on what you already have? Well, but how do you want me to do that? Well, for example, very simple. When you're cooking, when you're standing at the stove, right, and you're preparing food, instead of just standing there and cooking, maybe take like your phone out, do a 15-second timer, and every time the bell hits off, you do 5 squats, and you continue cooking. You do 5 squats, and then you continue cooking. Maybe if you have stairs, take those stairs 2-3 times, right? Instead of just walking up once to the bathroom, like after you've already, if it's really, really urgent, walk your stairs up 2-3 times. Maybe if you have the time before or right after waking up, you prepare yourself a coffee, you sit down on the couch, maybe grab yourself a book instead of your phone. Read a little bit. This is simple and small ways of how you can improve your life and your lifestyle that is adapted to you, to your specific life. Because if you can change the circumstances, change the patterns within your life and make them adapt, translate over to your life. Because then slowly, bit by bit, you will see how you will make bigger shifts towards the right things. Maybe if you love partying and you love partying 3 times a week, maybe see what 2 times a week will do to you. Maybe see if you skip a week and then the week after you do it again. See how you feel within that week, right? It's like those small incremental changes that will make a big difference. Because in and of itself, the setting didn't change. You just changed the cadence and the rhythm that this life translates over to. Because if your brain is used to partying 3 times a week, this is naturally what it will predict for the next week. And this is naturally where your entire body will move yourself to. Probably on Friday evening, like before you're finishing work at 4 p.m., you start already having saliva for the first beer in your hand. So here is then, if you stop yourself in the tracks and instead of maybe heading to the bar, you kind of already in advance, book yourself a massage session. So you have something to break that pattern, that loop, and do something else. Because it's the same as Pavlov's dog, right? We are all human beings that are kind of programmed to this our specific future playing out based on what we know about our past. So the experiment with Pavlov's dog, most of you are already aware of it, right? Pavlov was training his dog to giving him food at the impulse of a bell being rang, right? Every time he rang a bell, the dog knew he was getting food. He was testing. Then at a certain moment he started testing, and he started only ringing the bell without giving the dog food. The dog, because he was so anchored, that neurological reflex between the impulse and the reaction are being coupled together, now all of a sudden got broken. Even though the bell was rang, he didn't get any food, but he still started creating saliva in his mouth. So the same way we are wired as human beings. We just need something to interrupt that pattern and replace it with a new, small, incremental change that, repeated over and over and over again through consistency, will create a new pattern. And this is how you can transform your entire life. Not from today to tomorrow, because that usually doesn't work, because your system is like, doesn't work. Freeze, fight, flight, right? But rather small things over and over and over and over again that will make a big difference. I don't tell people facts on what they need to do. I make suggestions on what they can maybe replace one thing with the other for this week and see how they feel, see how that translates over into the life for the next week. If it doesn't work, sure, let's try something else. You have an infinite amount of possibilities what you can do. how you can do things. So the difference between you now and the version of you that is living a healthy, successful, fulfilled life is just small incremental steps that needs to be repeated, tested, rinsed, tested again, implemented, and if they didn't work, replaced with something else, test, rinse, and so on and so on. So the idea here is that, coming to a close of this video, you have all of the resources that you need in your life to live this specific life that you're dreaming and aiming for. Stop listening simply to the information that you receive and implement them one by one. Rather, take the information that you receive from other people, from your YouTube video, even from this video, right? Important, even from this video, specifically from this video. If you're watching this, listen to what I say and try to filter it through your own reality. Try to take some of the things that I said and test them out for yourself. Implement them. See them on a 7-day basis. What has changed? Is it a positive change? Is it a negative change? Do I want to continue in this way? Can I improve something? Because inherently, we're all intelligent beings. This is what God gave us. This is like this entire reality that we're living, the body, all of the functions, everything that's happening at the same time is an absolute miracle. So take that into consideration, that you are a gift of God, you are a gift of the universe. Use that gift to create the life that you want to live. If you want to find out more on identity work, there's a bunch of very useful information here in the description down below, right? You can as well go ahead and like this video, share it with a friend, comment, whatever, whatever kind of thing you got out of this video, comment it down below. So maybe some people feel inspired by what you write. And just follow me on my journey, right? You can find all of the links you need on my the identity quiz, a free identity resource that I'm giving you right now as well. You can find the link in the description where you can understand the underlying patterns that are keeping you stuck and how to actually get out of that cycle, replace, and slowly, bit by bit by bit by bit, we will start working into a future where we're all happy, fulfilled, and working with our own system in our own world through our own lens and interpretation. With this being said, I love you all. Have a beautiful rest of your day and see you in the next one.